Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Rainer and this is Rainier Books. Today I give you another single review, and maybe I'm giving you a single review on August the 11th of the best book that I've read so far in this year. At least the book that touched my heart and really immersed me as no other book has done before this year. And I'm talking about Red Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. I hope it's right to say Roisin O'Donnell from Ireland. I wanted this book to be longlisted for the Booker Prize. It did not get longlisted, and I think after having finished this book 2 days ago, I think Booker people, you really made a huge mistake not longlisting this book, because I'm going to tell you why. But let me first start with some background to this book. I think that is important for you to know. In the year of 2024, and I speak again Irish, probably very wrongly pronounced, in 2024 the Garda Síochána, that's the police in Ireland, responded to over 65,000 abuse incidents, domestic abuse incidents in the country, and realized that Ireland is a pretty small country with 5.3 million people. So that means that they have 178 abuse cases each and every day in the country. That is quite a lot. And I realized when I was looking on the internet that Ireland in EU standards is clearly above average, with like 4 or 5% above the average incidence of domestic violence. 88%, no surprise, of the violence victims are women. And we're not talking only about physical abuse, we're also talking about emotional, sexual, neglect, financial and economic abuse. Well, and also, you know probably that Ireland is a very Catholic country still. I mean, almost 90-something% of the population are Catholics. And until the year of 1996, divorce was actually banned in Ireland. So women and men are allowed to divorce their partners first from 1996 onwards. And in November 1995, they had a referendum where the people were asked yes or no. And the referendum was super close. 50.28% voted yes. Let's make it possible for people to get divorced. And 49.72% were against it. And the difference between both sides was a mere 9,114 votes. So from this year on, we have the 18th, I think it's the 18th Amendment of the Irish Constitution, which allows couples to get divorced, first in 1996. And in that year, they had to be separated. They have to live separated for 4 years until 2019, when they introduced another amendment to the Constitution. I think it's called the 38th Amendment of the Constitution, which also was done by a referendum, which was, and you can see that Ireland has changed a lot between 1995 and 2019 in those 24 years, because in 2019 the majority to shorten that period of 4 years living apart down to 2 was 82% of the people voted yes, we should shorten that period. Now, I talked a lot about divorce and domestic abuse in Ireland, and I think that's very important because the novel Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell deals with these issues and some more. So we have a character, we have a protagonist in that novel, and her name is Chiara Fay. She's married to a guy that is, his name is Ryan, or Ryan Patrick. The two of them met in England, actually, where in the northern parts of England, I think in Sheffield, where Chiara was living with her mom and her people, and she was half Irish, but she lived in England. And this Irish guy comes to town, and she fell completely in love with Ryan. Ryan wants her to move over. After a few months, he wants to marry her, and they live in Dublin. She gets pregnant almost immediately, and then a relationship develops that is not so nice, because Ryan starts to control Chiara. He doesn't want her to have much contact with her relatives anymore. He doesn't want her to work. He wants her to be the mother of the baby and to have the household. He doesn't want her to work. He tells her actually that, because she's a teacher of English, that for being a teacher of English is absolutely required to speak Irish, which later turns out not to be true. And in the beginning, we are meeting Chiara and her two kids, two girls, in a situation where she's already pretty desperate. She has tried before to leave her husband. She has tried before to leave Ryan, but she came back, like many women come back. So one day, Chiara thinks now enough is enough, and she has to leave because she feels so, not physically abused by Ryan, but she feels emotionally, she's extremely tense. And what Roisin O'Donnell is so good at is describing the feelings of people, especially the feelings of Chiara, who's in that trapped situation. She doesn't want to be a bad mother. And she leaves Ryan with the two kids. First she sleeps in her car for one night. Then she gets somehow a room in a shelter in a hotel. And she has to stay in that hotel for months, in that little hotel room. And she realizes very soon that she's pregnant with her third child. She will give birth to that child, and she will be in that hotel room for months and months to come in Dublin. It's so difficult for her because she has no money. Remember, she wasn't allowed to work. And what O'Donnell is perfectly well in is to immerse you into that story, to immerse you into Chiara's horrible situation, about her, into her being unsecure about, is she doing the right thing? I mean, she feels guilt for breaking up a family, but she's absolutely right, because this Ryan, honestly, Ryan is an asshole. He's a horrible man. He is, I really hate Ryan Patrick as his parents call him. And even the parents are behind Patrick. They say, when they communicate with Chiara, they say, our son is such a great guy, and he married that bad woman who doesn't want his love. She neglects his love, and she doesn't want the best for her children. She's so egoistic and selfish and stuff like that. It's horrible. But all the descriptions, and Chiara is so incredibly fighting. She's fighting so much. First she feels so weak, and she really feels weak, but she never gives up. That woman never gives up. And so this is a story about how she's trying to get out of the claws of this man who's trying to get her back. He always comes at her, texting all the time, phoning her, ringing her up all the time. Sometimes she has 60, 70 missed calls by Ryan, who says, "Come back, my darling, and we'll start over again. It's going to be so beautiful. We belong together." And we know that shit from toxic relationships, because they always say, "I'm going to change, everything's going to be so beautiful." And then they start hitting on you again after like 24 hours, after a couple of hours only. So this book is captured me a lot, and we are rooting for Chiara and her children to get out of this marriage, to get Ryan away from her house. And there are ups and downs, and she meets a lot of people on her way. She meets Kathy, who's a roommate in another hotel room, also staying there with her kids for years, I think, in that hotel. We meet Diego, who's a man from Brazil who's trying to establish himself, first in Ireland, learning English, but then trying to move to the United States on a scholarship. So we meet some other people, and we also realize about the housing crisis, the incredible housing crisis in Ireland, which is so incredible. I say that word a few times now, but it's really outstanding compared to other countries. We have a housing crisis almost everywhere in Europe, yeah, but in Ireland it is another dimension. I saw that my apartment, which I'm renting here in Farsta in Sweden. Sweden is not a cheap country, that I can tell you. But I'm renting this apartment for, let's say, $1,100 per month. And it's a 3-room apartment. I have 2 bedrooms. And it's 75 square meters. I don't know how much that is in square feet. It's built in 2020. So I get this for $1,100 American dollars. And I saw when I was in Ireland, in Dublin, I saw that an apartment in Kimmage, where I stayed in an Airbnb, would cost me like $2,800 a month. So for my salary that I get in Sweden, and I'm not low paid, I'm average paid, for my salary I couldn't live in Dublin. And if you are somebody running away from a toxic relationship and you have no income, you have no job, and you have kids, how the situation then must be for you if you are in a dire situation. It is absolutely horrible and disgusting. The housing crisis has gone so long in Dublin that we have thousands of women and children right now as we speak, who are in hotels, who are in bed and breakfasts, who are in hostels, who don't know what tomorrow brings, who are longing to get a home, but who are not capable of doing so because the housing crisis is almost, quelching everything. And as of April 2025, that's a few months ago, there were 4,775 children who lived in temporary accommodations. Some of them for weeks, some of them for months, and some of them for years, and they don't know how to solve that problem. Even in that respect, even for that topic, Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell is a great book that really shows that crisis. And I think literature, for me, always has to connect the brain and the heart. And this book does it in a perfect way. It also gives you an issue that is absolutely an issue of our time. It's housing, it's domestic abuse. And it tells you also something about the human condition, of the condition of humans living in 2025, fighting for their lives. And I know that there are many women who are not capable of doing, and I don't understand them, who are not capable of doing what Chiara does. Chiara is so resilient, so strong, and fighting for her children, fighting for her own situation to get them out of there. She never gives up. She gets so many downs in that situation, but she cries a lot and she is desperate, but she will stand up again. And I understand that there's so many others who who are really brought down by this, who return to assholes like Ryan Patrick in this book, oh my god, and who live miserable lives. The children live miserable lives because they are experiencing that something is definitely and entirely wrong with their parents. And for this case, and for these important situations that we are not supposed to forget and that we're supposed to talk about and help, for this is Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell, an amazing book, and I loved it, and it's absolutely a 5-star read. It also gives you a lot of, I've been into Dublin a few weeks ago, it gives you a lot of Dublin scenery. They go to Phoenix Park, they visit the zoo, they are at the quays, they're down at River Liffey, and you will, if you've been to Dublin, you will recognize so many buildings, so many streets, and that's also nice for a reader like me who has been to Dublin. But most of all, the center is, the heart is Chiara and her fight and her struggle, her resilience, her strength, and, well, I'm full of admiration. I would actually love to talk to Roisin O'Donnell about this book, how she did it. Loved it. Next one will be soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.